Hi, welcome to Legends of Stuttgart. It's Wednesday morning, around 7:30, and I am on the way to RPM Technique. So the car's booked in. The list of work to be done is a full service, including spark plugs and ignition coils. Also, I'm having all the fluids replaced. Transmission fluid, front differential, coolant. The whole check over of the car. I detected an exhaust leak, which is quite annoying. When the windows open, you can hear a bit of a farty noise coming from the exhaust, which I really hate. So all that will be looked at within the service. So if anyone's been on my website and read my story, if you want to do that, it's legendsofstuttgart.com. Go under my story and just read a little bit about my past, where I've come from, what my experience is. So I've been in the motoring trade a very long time, since a very young age. The work that I'm about to have done, I could do myself very easily to a very high standard. I'm a sucker for detail, and I have a quality where when I do something, I want to do it to the absolute best of my ability. The reason I chose RPM is because there was attention to detail from the beginning. So when I was researching a specialist garage to do the work that I want done, I reached out to a few independents. JZM was one of them. The second one, mobile Porsche specialist. RPM Technique. A couple of others that I care not to mention for no particular reason. The quote that I got from RPM, a lady called Lydia, extremely responsive. I think we exchanged at least a dozen emails between us. She got back to me straight away and said, I'll get back to you with a quote shortly. Sure enough, she did. And the quote, going through the quote, I think I mentioned the quote in my last video. There's a lot of attention to detail. Every single service item, right down to the last O-ring or washer, is detailed with a price, and each individual job has a particular labor attached to it. This is very important for the following reason. So, mobile Porsche specialist got back to me with a quote. They were quite responsive. The quote, however, each individual job was at menu prices. Menu prices, when you're having a batch of work done, is not really a good idea. So going through the particular quote, so the jobs I wanted a quote for First of all, service, spark plugs, coil packs, all the fluids. Speed camera. All the fluids. And
continue onto the B4.
Clutch, flywheel, RMS upgrade. Sorry, IMS, RMS, etc. A couple of things I noticed on that particular quote.
In 3/4 of a mile, at the roundabout, take the second exit.
There was a quote for replacing spark plugs, which was, I think, 250 plus VAT. There was a separate quote for coil packs, for parts, and £150 plus VAT labour to replace the coil packs. So I picked up on this. So for those of you that are technically minded, and I expect a lot of people not to be, you have to remove the coil packs to replace the spark plugs. Another thing that I picked up on was RPM Technique quoted £80 labour plus VAT to replace the transmission oil.
At the roundabout, take the second exit onto the green.
With Mobile Porsche Specialist, it was £180 plus VAT to replace the gearbox oil. I thought that was a little bit unfair because they're removing the gearbox anyway to replace clutch kit, dual mass flywheel, IMS, RMS, all that stuff. So then to charge another £180 labour just to open the plug, drain the oil and refill with a couple of litres of gearbox oil, I thought is a little bit extreme. So I picked up on these points, and I mean, look, whoever's doing the quote looks up the menu pricing, says yes, this is your quote, and that's basically it. I mean, it's no fault of their own. You know, the lady's doing a job, she's sitting at a desk typing numbers in. She might have some knowledge of vehicles, and this is by no means intended to be patronising, but you know, I've worked with people in the office before. They haven't got a clue about cars. They answer the phone, you know, they make the bookings, they learn as they go along. So anyway, I responded with an email saying, look, can you please have a look at these prices? I think there's, you know, some consideration needs to be made. I got an email back saying I've sat down with my MD and we've gone through the prices, and yes, you are right, we shouldn't be charging labour for replacing coil packs when we're doing spark plugs, so we'll knock that off. However, £180 plus VAT to drain and refill the gearbox, in our opinion, is reasonable. I said fair enough. The quote from RPM wasn't the cheapest. However, oh, mind you, I didn't get any response at all from JZM, so I've blown them out completely. I won't be going back to JZM for anything. I sent them an email over 2 weeks ago with a full list of work. I mean, this work that I'm proposing to do, you know, it's not small jobs. You know, the whole thing comes to around 4.5, 5 grand without any extras. So when I send you an email over 2 weeks ago asking to use your company to do the work that I suggest doing on my car, you don't respond at all. Not even one email to say, yep, we've received your email, we'll get back to you with a quote. That won't be a problem at all. Absolutely nothing. So they're out of the question. Lydia from RPM, I cannot praise her enough. She's sent me an extremely detailed quote, right down to the last washer, right down to the last O-ring, and I will emphasize this point.
At the roundabout,
when you do a
take
service
the
on a
first
car,
exit onto Icknield Way.
the defining thing for me is if you know that particular car and you are familiar with
In 3.5
the common
miles,
problems,
turn right onto Tring Road.
the common little things that go wrong. When you do a service, the least you can do is suggest to the customer, I recommend you do this, I recommend you do that, because these are things that commonly go wrong with these cars. On the quotation, without me saying anything at all, on the quotation, camshaft, tensioner, O-rings, camshaft seals, small things like these make all the difference for me, because I'm, like I said earlier, I'm a sucker for detail. I pay a lot of attention to detail. So that sold RPM technique to me right there and then. Second thing about RPM, they've been around for over 20 years. They've got a really nice setup, multiple units. They have their own branded Porsche modification center. CSR is RPM Technique's own brand. When we get there, if there's any cars about, I'll take videos of a few of them. They develop their own exhaust systems. They have been in-house for over 10 years, I believe. They have developed their own exhaust manifolds and mufflers. So this is another selling point for me. They have actually spent time, money in R&D developing their own products. So there's a few reasons why I chose RPM for the work that I'm having done. The car's going to be there for a good few days. However, what I've decided to do is, for now, because of the exhaust issue, as I mentioned in the last video, I'm toying with the idea of replacing the complete exhaust system anyway. So I've decided to go ahead with the full service, spark plugs, coil packs, etc. I'll do all the fluids, gearbox fluid, front differential fluid, all the coolant is going to be replaced. They're going to check out the exhaust, and if there's any issues with the exhaust to the degree where it needs replacing, I will consider having RPM's exhaust system fitted. I've heard it on their CSR cars. They do sound really nice, and they've spent 10 years developing it to a fine point. So that for me certainly is another selling point for RPM.
Thank you.